Patty Rue. I have the book that I'm going to be reviewing, an entire loaf of bread from Walmart, and a butter. So I think I'm in a good spot to review today. Think we're ready. Hey friends, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be me discussing one of my recent favorites. That is Iron Widow by Zhiran J. Zhao. This is a YA history-inspired sci-fi novel. I have a lot of things to talk about, so let's just kind of get into the book. I want to eat more bread, but I can't. It's very rough right now. So if you guys don't know, which I'm very surprised for considering this book blew up on BookTube, Twitter, TikTok, primarily because of the authors, their social media presence, but this is a YA historical-based sci-fi, kind of centering around the life of Wu Zetian, who, if you guys don't know, in Chinese history, I believe is the only female empress. Well, this is not an actual, like, direct historic retelling. It is based off of those historical figures in this world, and a lot of it has been dramatized and adjusted for theatrical purposes in this book. This is set in, like I said, a sci-fi futuristic society where the current country is at war with these mecha robots, and in order to fight this war, men and women have to partner up and go into like kind of a Pacific Rim Power Ranger situation where they pilot one gigantic mecha robot that fights and, you know, throws themselves around everywhere. However, because of how the system is built, more women often than not die because their chi is not up to exactly, can't balance out and battle out with men, so they end up dying. Now, Wu Zetian is on a quest of revenge after the death or the murder of her sister and this one specific pilot. Now, this is part of the synopsis, so you can't blame me for doing this. When she does avenge her sister, it's done in the most random way possible, where she is actually the one surviving when she exits that cockpit. Now, because of this, she is thrown in with one of the strongest fighters in the army, which everyone kind of hopes that because he is the strongest, he will end up dying. Now, with kind of this taste for power and a taste for wanting to know more and understand what the frick is going on, she embarks on this kind of quest to figure out exactly why this system is so against women, and in a way to kind of stop all of these girls from sacrificing themselves for something greater in a society that cares less about them. Now, let's hop into first thoughts before I get into the trigger warnings, which thankfully are listed at the front of this book. But I was kind of intrigued by this book. If you guys have been following me on this channel for a while, you can pretty easily tell that I am not a science fiction reader. So I do tend to stay away from those novels, with a couple of exceptions, because, you know, I am interested in all this stuff, but like, just in this little brain here, this little noggin, don't know what went wrong with the computer in here, but to me, science fiction has always been something I enjoy more as a visual aspect, whether that be graphic novels, mangas, TV shows, movies, webcomics. It fits better in my head visually than it ever does on page. But I was super intrigued by this. It was sold as like did have the historic retellings. It does have like that Pacific Rim vibe. I have never seen Pacific Rim. I need to, but where they kind of do enter this host, this gigantic mecha robot to fight off people, their enemies, as a pilot. I am, however, not a stranger to Zhiran's content, as my boyfriend did introduce me to their YouTube videos explaining like Chinese history and like their Mulan comparisons and all that stuff. So I was not a stranger, but I was very surprised here that they were coming out with a book. How I missed it while stalking their profile, I don't know, but I did. But again, still very hesitant because sci-fi. I was finally sold on the idea of reading this book when I watched Rachel's video. Rachel, whom is a good friend of this channel. I will leave her stuff, like her video review of this, like down below. I was finally sold on it, so I finally decided to kind of not suck it up, but take the leap of faith and hope that my little tiny puny brain will be able to comprehend science fiction. Now, as for trigger warnings, I kind of did comb through quite a bit of like story, graph, and Goodreads content warnings and such, despite there being mentions already on the front cover. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything. So as of this, it does say that front cover, please be aware that this book contains scenes of violence, abuse, suicide ideation, discussion, and references to sexual assault, though there are never anything on page, alcohol addiction, and torture. I would also like to add that there is murder in this thing. I think that's all I had really. Let me just double check my notes. So there is also a lot of misogyny, femicide, sexism, and war and death, as well as I like to add on to those content warnings. Again, I am very thankful that there are these lists of trigger warnings on here, slash content, actually more content warnings, but I do like to add extra just in case, because you know, sometimes not saying that they missed it, but sometimes things that don't trigger, like say the author or the editors or beta readers, could trigger someone else. So let's start off with the bad things that I did not like about this book, and these are very low and few in between. Most of them is probably up to user error, because again, does not compute science fiction very well up in this little noggin. In fact, the hamster takes a nice nap when she has to read science fiction. So there were only a couple of things that I had a really big issue with this book. One is that I felt like some of the descriptors in terms of fighting were a little too vague. Since we are using a lot of gigantic robots to jump around and fly everywhere and fight and rip things off and kill people, it was really hard for me to see, visualize what was going on. Now this is probably 90% user error and 10% just lack of descriptors. While I was combing through the reviews, I saw a lot of people had also mentioned that some aspects of the book were a little vague and really hard to kind of follow. So thankfully it wasn't all user error, but most of it was your user error. However, that didn't really deter me from enjoying the book. Sometimes my brain can kind of fill in blanks. Other times it just doesn't do anything. So again, I think 90% of it was up to user error. The other thing that I had was dialogue and kind of just writing syntax. I felt like there were definitely instances where the writing and the dialogue was kind of clunky and awkward. But again, this could be up to user error. None of this really deterred me, but it did take me out a couple of times when some of the writing was a little bit on the clunky side. But this is a debut novel, so can't be too mad. Moving on to good things, which there were so many good things, I am still floored. Starting off with the main character, who is a narrator for this novel, is Wu Zetian. Again, she is loosely based off of the Empress, the only Empress of China. And she is just such an angry and flawed character. Now, this is coined as a feminist retelling, and I had a lot of people looking through reviews saying that it goes against what feminism is, but also I'm sitting here I just want angry protagonists. I don't want, I love my soft people, I love them, but I love a good angry woman. I love someone who is bullheaded and is flawed in so many levels, but she knows why and she's willing to do whatever it takes, because I feel like, especially in this misogynistic world where literally girls are set up to die, being soft and cuddly and holding up little posters and trying to change everything from the inside is going to be difficult. So I love the fact that Zetian was such an aggressive character, and she was so unflinching in what she wanted and how she was going to get it, and she didn't care who she stepped on or how. But she is, again, incredibly flawed. And I also love the fact that she is a bit of a morally gray character. I genuinely love that she's such a flawed character, and I think it's such a great thing to see in literature that we are starting to include more diverse personalities, because I feel like a lot of YA tends to have the softer kind of gal, but I just want the angry woman. There's nothing more feminist to me than allowing a woman to feel all of her feelings, positive and negative. What is Nico? Moving on to Xiamin and Yizi, who is our two love interests and also another set of protagonists. We have the perfect little trio, because we have angry girl and cute little emo boy, and then I love the fact that Yizi's personality is very much the nurturing type. I like that we get they're not all angry. We have a nurturer and a healer in the group. Very nice and balanced. And on top of that, he's also kind of the more powerful out of the three because he has the most money. So I like that he's a soft little bean. He's so cute. And it's so precious. I think the plot twists were done really well. They had me gasping at the end of my seat. I was super stoked to see what else happened. And while there were plot twists that I felt like did need a little bit more build up, they also made sense in terms of just the general society that was going on. So they weren't a super big surprise, but they were still surprised enough to where I was like, what? The ending also, the ending had me thrown for a loop. I was on a roller coaster with the little loop-de-loops with how much this was twisting in the last, like, what, 50 pages? I really wish I was not reading this in the office when I had finished the book, because I just wanted to scream. Like, when things were happening, I was just screeching off the top, like, mentally screaming, and, like, somehow my throat was raw, even though I had not a single sound had escaped my lips. That's what had happened. This book genuinely had me at the edge of my seat. I wanted to keep reading, and I had a really hard time putting it down when I had picked it up. It was such a fast-paced book, but in the best way possible. I feel like we got a lot of the characters and a lot of their motivations and pasts and secrets thrown out in the open in just the span of this book, and it was super fast-paced, and I feel like I didn't miss a lot by reading at the pace that I was reading, or how fast this book also read. Now, lastly, time for like my overall thoughts. Rating, would I recommend it? Overall thoughts, I think this is a really strong debut. There are still some issues that I think would not so much like require like more needing out, but it's definitely something that will come as Geron grows as an author, which I'm very excited for. I need to see the sequel. I need to see it. I need it in my little hands. I need to hold it, to caress it, to have them tell me that everything will be okay, because right now it doesn't feel like that. This is overall a really good and strong debut. 5 out of 5 stars. Definitely a favorite of the year, if not my favorite of the year, which is saying something because we are only like what, 2-3 weeks into 2022. It's been a rough 2-3 weeks, but it's been there. So yeah, I highly recommend this book if you guys are in the right mindset, because again, difficulty with the trigger warnings and such. But overall, I really enjoyed it, and I cannot believe it took me this long to read it. I feel like with releases, I'm either super on top of it or super behind. 2020, I was pretty much on top of the releases that I was looking for. 2021, I think, was a little rougher of a year for me, so I was definitely a little bit more behind on that. But you know, potato. But that is it for the review of Iron Widow by Zhiran J. Zhao. If you guys enjoyed this and want me to do more review videos, leave me a comment down below for those. But until next time, hope you guys are having a wonderful time, wonderful week. This comes out on a Friday, so hopefully you guys have a good weekend. But until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.